welcome to Learning Kitchen Live, episode 25. Happy New Year. I'm Jessica Burch. I'm one of the dietitians at Community Servings, and as you can see, we're in my kitchen today, so welcome to Home Edition. I'm going to be sharing two of my favorite weeknight, easy, go-to meals, or I guess it's actually one meal, but it's two recipes that make that one meal. The first is a revamped red sauce, and the second is a Veggie-ful turkey meatball. If you've tuned into any of my classes before, you know that I really think the vegetables are the absolute best, and we should include as many in our meals as we possibly can. This particular set of recipes are really focusing on squeezing as many of those vegetables into everyday dishes as we possibly can. Let's see, what was I gonna say? I just totally forgot. Oh, so in my opinion, vegetables are nature's wonder drug, right? They're full of vitamins, minerals, fiber, phytonutrients, all things that we know if we incorporate them into our diets more and more, what we're gonna end up doing is getting these wonderful things that are gonna help us to ward off, halt, or even in some cases, reverse chronic illness. So including them in your diet is one of the best things that you can do for yourselves. If you're thinking about New Year's resolutions or even a Thursday afternoon resolution, think about ways that you can put some more vegetables into the foods that you're eating. I'll be sharing some different tips and tricks on how to do that with just some everyday meals as we're going along. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to post them into the comments section below the video as we're going. And if I can see them, I'll answer them, or my fellow dietitians will be watching as well, and hopefully they'll be able to answer for you as well. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to share some exciting news. So in the spirit of healthy eating, our friends at Always Health Partners are giving away a brand new Instapot to one of our viewers at home. If you're not familiar with an Instapot, it's a really wonderful kitchen tool. It's a slow cooker and a pressure cooker combined into one. So if you're trying to cook healthy meals for yourself and your family, but streamline things in the kitchen, this is a great tool to have on hand. There are thousands of Instant Pot recipes out there. And so if you would like, you can enter our contest to potentially win one for yourself. It could not be easier. So if you would like to enter to win, all you have to do is create your version of one of the recipes that either myself or Beth or Val share on Learning Kitchen Live this month. Take a picture of your delectable creation and post it in the comments section below the video. At the end of the month, we will randomly draw somebody's name from all of the people that have submitted pictures of the things that they've created. And at the beginning of February, we'll randomly draw, or I already said that, we'll randomly draw the name. And then at the beginning of February, we'll announce the winner. So you get to create an amazing, delicious meal and potentially win a brand new Instant Pot. So I encourage you to give it a try. Now, that being said, if you're just joining now, this is Learning Kitchen Live, episode 25. I'm Jessica, one of the dietitians at Community Servings, and we are going to get started with our revamped red sauce. First things first, got to turn on the oven, or the stove. I always call this an oven, it's a stove. All right, so the recipes for these dishes are going to be posted in the comments section below the video at the end of the class. You'll see that I put in my favorite vegetables into this recipe, the things that I think are really easy to prepare, things that are on hand, things that are accessible and price friendly. Put in whatever you want, whatever vegetables you have on hand and things that you like. I'm just using some basics in here. You can take some of them out, you can add some other things in. Eggplant, mushrooms, spinach, fennel, whatever vegetables you have that you love that you would like to try in this dish. The nice thing about this dish is it works really well with whatever you want to throw at it. I'm going to make this sauce veggie based, but you could add meat, but we're making meatballs, and so we don't really need to put meat into the sauce as well. Okay, so I'm putting about 2 teaspoons of olive oil in the bottom of my pot, and we're gonna let that just coat the bottom of the pan. And I heated up the pan beforehand because I want the oil to heat evenly across. All right, and then into this, I'm going to add, this is 1 stalk of celery chopped up, 1 carrot chopped up, and half of an onion. I will try to talk over the sizzling of the veggies. Okay. So I'm just going to spread these out evenly so that the bottom of the pan has a nice coating of veggies on it, and I'm going to leave it for a second because what I want to happen here is that the vegetables will start to caramelize and cook down a little bit. That will intensify the flavor, make it so much more yummy, and allow us to get some more color into what we're doing. So while this is starting, I'm going to show you the first steps for making our Veggie-ful turkey meatballs. Turkey is a great meat to use in things like meatballs, meatloaf, hamburgers, things that you normally would choose maybe a beef for or a ground pork. The reason is turkey's lower in saturated fat, so it's better for our hearts and our health overall. The one problem is that turkey has a tendency to dry out a little bit. And so to be able to counter that, we're going to start with this first step. So I have just 1 slice of whole wheat bread that I chopped up with a knife into little tiny pieces. If you don't want to take the time to chop it up, if you have a blender, you can throw it into that. If you've got a small person at home with nothing to do and busy fingers, have them tear up a tiny piece of bread into tiny little pieces. So I'm going to put this in my bowl here. And then to that, I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of low-fat milk. And I'm just going to give this a quick stir. And what this is going to do, I'm going to let this sit for a second. The bread is going to absorb the milk, and that's going to add some extra moisture to our meatballs. The bread will add some more density to the meatballs, but because it's soaked in that milk, it will keep them nice and moist. We're adding extra fiber and vitamins and minerals with the whole grain bread, and a tiny bit of extra protein with the low-fat milk. So we'll let that sit for a second and check on these yummy veggies, but I think I need to turn the heat up on a tiny bit. Okay. Oh yeah, they're starting to cook down a little bit. Now, I'm gonna do the quickened version of this dish. You're gonna see me cook it really fast. The longer that you can let this sauce sit on the stove, the more flavorful it's gonna be. I know we don't all have that much time. This can be cooked from start to finish in about half an hour, give or take how crazy your household is. But if you have extra time and you can let it simmer for a little bit longer, or if you are one of those people that I admire so much and are able to prep meals ahead of time, if you cook this sauce a couple days in advance and let it bring its flavors together in the refrigerator over a few days and then heat back up, that's another really great option, just to let the flavors come together better. If you're just joining now, this is Learning Kitchen Live, episode 25. We're making a revamped red sauce and some turkey meatballs. Okay, so that's gonna cook for another minute. Let's go back to our meatballs for a second. Our milk is pretty much all absorbed into the bread. I don't know if you can see, but before there was a little bit of a puddle, and now it's just mushy brown bread. And so I'm going to start adding my other meatball ingredients to this. So I've got 1 egg that I'm going to dump on in. And if you're concerned about using an egg in this, few things. Yes, if you have high cholesterol, we want to kind of try to cut back on the number of times we use oat yolks in our food each week. This recipe is for 6 to 8 servings. So if you think about that, you're only going to get 1/6 of the egg yolk or 1/8 of the egg yolk. Not a whole lot at the beginning. Or not a whole lot ever. I don't know why I said the beginning. Or to begin with. Maybe that's what I was trying to say. The other thing is that there are a lot of really good vitamins and minerals in that yolk too. So I wouldn't worry about it too much if you're just using this, you know, one egg yolk to make a bunch of meatballs. I'm also going to put in, where'd my spoon go? There we go. This is 3 cloves of garlic mashed up. Or, yeah, I used a garlic press, so it's mashed. You can finely chop it if that is an option. Oh, going back to my veggies because I can see they're starting to get brown. I'm going to give them a nice stir. So I don't want to burn anything, but I do want them to caramelize. All right. So I've got my bread, my milk, my egg yolk, and my garlic. And I'm going to give this a whisk. The egg, going back to that for a second, you can leave it out completely too if you don't want to. It's just to help bind the meatball together a little bit. And because we're putting in a bunch of other things to add flavor and incorporate more vegetables, having that binder is helpful. But I make these meatballs at least once a week, and I have forgotten the egg a couple times. It's not the end of the world. All right, next I'm going to put in about a tablespoon of tomato paste from the tomato paste that I'm going to add to this sauce. And give that a whisk. My carrots, celery, and onions are looking like they want some more friends, so I'm gonna dump in, this is 1 tiny zucchini and 1 tiny summer squash. If you find a large one of either of those, you can just use one. All right, but it comes out to be about 1.5 cups of chopped up squash. And give that a stir. And I'm actually, for time's sake, to make this go a little bit faster, I'm gonna put in a little, there we go. That was probably, loud bubbly water. That was about a tablespoon or 2 of water, just to help steam down the vegetables. It will help them cook a little bit faster if you're trying to speed up the process. Okay, let that cook and simmer. Let those veggies bring all of their deliciousness together, and we're going to go back to our meatballs. So to this, I'm going to also add 1/4 cup of grated Parmesan cheese. Again, that's an optional ingredient. You don't need to include it if you don't want to. Just gives another layer of flavor. And I'm using the Parmesan as part of my salt as well. So I put a very small amount of salt into the meatballs, but Parmesan has a lot of has a lot of salt in it naturally. I don't know if naturally is the right word, but you have to use salt to make cheese. So there's gonna be a lot of salt in the Parmesan anyway. So you can cut back on the salt that you add into the dish. I'm also gonna add some oregano, basil, a little bit of salt, and some black pepper. All right, and give that a mix. It smells really good. It doesn't look super appetizing if you can see it, but it smells delicious and it's gonna be really good. All right, and then I have got 1 carrot that I used a box grater on to grate down, and then I actually chopped it up a little bit more after that because I didn't want long pieces of shredded carrot. I wanted them to be small, but it's easier than trying to do that really fine dice on them. And then I measured out 2 cups of spinach and then chopped it. So don't chop it and then measure 2 cups because you'll end up with a whole lot of spinach. I think it breaks down to being a little bit more than 1/3 of a cup, somewhere in that range. Maybe 1/2 cup of spinach after you chop it all up. So these are gonna go into our meatball as well for more flavor, more vegetables. Okay, and give that a mix. Now again, you pick what vegetables you like to include in your, the whisk was not a good choice at this point, in your meatballs. Mushrooms would be really nice. Onions, if you're gonna do onion, if you like the flavor of not fully cooked down onion, that would work, because these don't cook long enough to fully cook an onion through. If you wanted to take the time to saute the onion, chopped up onions and then put them in the meatball, that would be really delicious too. It's all based on what you have time for. Okay. So, my vegetables are sizzling along. And we are going to add some more yummy things in here to build up more layers of flavor. So if you like using anchovies in cooking, anchovies will give a little extra bump of calcium, small one to this dish. You could put in 1 or 2 of anchovy fillets at this point and let them melt into the vegetables a little bit. I'm going to put in 3 cloves of pressed garlic, smashed garlic, minced garlic, that was the word I was looking for, minced. It's starting to smell even more delicious. I always cook these or do these classes before I've had lunch, which is kind of killing me because I'm starving by the time I start cooking, and it just smells so good. So if you're just joining now, this is Learning Kitchen Live, episode 25. I'm Jessica Burch, one of the dietitians at Community Servings, and we are doing a revamped red sauce and a turkey meatball. All right, and our sauce is getting ready for the tomato component. But first, I like to add some vinegar. It gives another layer of flavor to your sauce, brightens it. And I'm gonna eyeball it, but it's about 1/4 of a cup. It's gonna get loud. Whew. And please remember that if you are using vinegar in a hot pan like this, when it hits the heat and it starts to evaporate, those fumes that come up can be a little abrasive. And I forget that every time I cook with vinegar. But it passes. It will be gone in just a moment. We will press on. And yeah, and it's gonna be delicious. So I'm just gonna let that vinegar evaporate into the vegetables before we add our tomatoes. So if you are in the habit of grabbing a jar of marinara and boiling some pasta and pouring it on, done, great, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're trying to find ways that you can sneak some more vegetables into what you're eating or your family's eating every day, what I would really encourage you to do is start off with something like this. You don't have to add in all of the vegetables. If you just have carrots and onions on hand, that's a great place to start. Chop them up, throw them in a blender or a Cuisinart to chop them up for you if you don't have time. Throw them in a pan with a little bit of olive oil and let them saute for a few minutes. Then you can pour that marinara sauce on. It will add an extra layer of flavor to the sauce that you're making already, and you're getting more of those vegetables in, and it didn't take a whole lot of time. The alternative is that you can make a longer sauce like this. So my vinegar is all cooked in, and now I'm going to put in 1 can of no salt added crushed tomatoes. And this is a 28-ounce can. I'm going to give that a stir. Oh, yum. And then I'm going to get out my tomato paste. And so this is just going to intensify that tomato flavor. It's going to thicken the sauce. There we go. pre-measured this, but I would normally just go to the sink and fill up my can to rinse off whatever delicious tomato bits are still in there. And, oh, it was balsamic vinegar. You could use red wine vinegar as well if you like. I just saw that question. I like the balsamic. I think it has more depth of flavor, but you know, pick what you've got on hand. If you have some red wine, just straight red wine, not the vinegar part, you can add some of that in too if you want. Okay, now the one thing is at this point you want to try to gauge how thick your sauce is. Does it need a little bit more liquid? Remember, it's going to be simmering on the stove for a little bit, so if it looks perfect right now, it needs a little bit more water. Mine looks pretty good, so I'm going to put in a little bit more water to get to that full 2 cups I had put in the recipe. Next, I'm going to put in a tablespoon of dried basil, 2 bay leaves. This one's really big, this one's really small, or not small, but you know, it will, they'll even each other out. A tablespoon of dried oregano, and then I've got a half a teaspoon of salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. And stir that in. Oh man, my stomach is grumbling. And that, oops, I forgot one thing that I forgot to measure out. Sugar. Not a lot, just a little. Hold on. So the acidity from the tomatoes can be a little harsh. If you add in just a pinch or 2 of sugar, that will cut the acidity. If you were my mother, you would add in peanut butter, which can work, but I like this sugar a little bit better. And it's not a lot. It's not gonna send, you know, your blood sugars through the roof or anything like that. It's just a little to cut the acidity. Okay. So, sauce is at the point where it just wants to have a top put on and a simmer. So we are going to move it over here and let it simmer for a minute. And we're gonna get our meatballs going. So, oops, I'm not gonna turn that on yet. If you're just joining now, this is Learning Kitchen Live, episode 25. We're doing a revamped red sauce and a Veggie-ful turkey meatball. So in my bowl, I have got my milk-soaked whole wheat breadcrumbs. The breadcrumbs I made from a slice of bread, that's all. Didn't buy anything fancy. I've got 1 egg, about a tablespoon of tomato paste, some Parmesan cheese, oregano, basil, salt, pepper, and some spinach and chopped up carrots. And now to this, I'm going to add a pound of ground turkey. And I'm going to keep my plate to form my meatballs. So this, you just want to mix the meat into all of your other ingredients, or all of your other ingredients mixed into the meat, however you think that should be approached, until it's well combined. You want all of those delicious flavors to be melded in, but you don't want to work it to the point that the proteins start to break down and it gets really tough. That would mean doing this for a long, long time. But, I don't know, I think that was maybe 30 seconds and I think it's pretty well mixed. And so what we're gonna do is, or what I'm gonna do and you're gonna watch, is form about, what is that? The golf ball size meatballs. Oh, these smell delicious too. So we talked about the adding extra vegetables to something like a marinara sauce, but let's kind of go through our usual day while I'm making these meatballs and think about different dishes that you could add extra vegetables, or I guess fruits too. So if we start with breakfast, you know, there's the standby, put vegetables in your eggs. You can do spinach, you can do carrots, you can do bell peppers, onions, mushrooms. All of those things will go great in eggs. if you're gonna just scramble them really quickly. You can, as I said before, the people that I admire the most are those that are able to plan ahead and do things like make muffin tin frittatas or a frittata or something for breakfast ahead of time with lots of vegetables in it. Thinking about fruit, you know, it doesn't have to be fresh fruit and it doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to have a papaya, mango, pineapple parfait with your breakfast. You could have an apple with your typical English muffin or bagel. But just remembering, if you're running out the door in a hurry, if you can grab that piece of fruit that's sitting on the counter and take it with you, start your day off with a little bit of that fruit or vegetable. It's going to set you up for a better day and better health in the long run. The next meal, or lunch, so your sandwich, can you put more vegetables on it? If you're eating leftovers from dinner, did you stick extra vegetables into that dinner dish? Having cut up vegetables in your refrigerator, things like carrots or celery, bell peppers, cucumbers, that you can just grab and add to whatever it is that you're eating. Soups, if you've got things like frozen vegetables on hand, and you can throw a handful into your frozen, or into your soup when you're heating it up. That one's a really big one. I was trying to finish it all up. There we go. That's a great way to sneak in more vegetables. Salads, you know, kind of like the go-to. If I want more vegetables for lunch, I'll have a salad. But you can think about it creatively. If you're having, say, like a bowl of leftover rice and beans, and you wanted to add some vegetables to it, going to that bag of frozen vegetables is a great idea. Or adding up a cut up tomato. Dirty fingers. Just a minute. A handful of spinach or arugula. I'm back on the rice and beans. Whatever you've got on hand, folding it, putting it onto that dish. All right, so more to come with that, but let's get these cooking. Okay, so I've got my flat pan here, and for this, what you want is a pan that you can stick in the oven. So no metal or plastic handles, please. All right, and I'm gonna just put about a tablespoon, a little bit more, maybe a tablespoon and a half of olive oil in the bottom of my pan. What you want is a nice layer of olive oil across the pan so that the meatballs don't stick too much. If you have a non-stick pan, woohoo! You don't need the olive oil at all. But I don't, so here we go. Ooh. We're gonna just let that, oh yeah, that's already heated. So we've got our meatballs, Veggie-ful turkey meatballs. I didn't let it get hot enough. You know if it's hot enough when they start sizzling right away. Oh, he's sizzling. He just was being a little bit shy about it. Okay. Whoop. All right, and we're gonna just line them up in the pan. There we go. The little guy in the middle. I'll tilt the camera so you can see these little devils sizzling away in here. What I'm going for is just to brown the bottoms, flip them, and then you stick them in the oven until they're cooked through. All right. So let's see if we can take a peek without me dropping. Yeah, see, there we go. Sizzly, sizzly meatballs. And our sauce is simmering here. We're gonna have a meal in no time. Okay, so back to ideas of incorporating more vegetables into meals that you might eat every day. So we had talked about adding extra vegetables into a sandwich, adding extra vegetables you know, on top of any sort of leftovers that you're heating up. A handful of spinach, a handful of arugula, those are things that you have on hand and like. You can also have a piece of fruit at lunch. Again, going back to things that are simple and on hand. Apples are readily available in pretty much any grocery store, and lots of corner stores and gas stations too if you just happen to be running by one. Grab an apple and add it to your meal. When we're thinking about dinner, something like this, where you take a recipe, think creatively. What are things that you usually cook, and can you sneak a vegetable in there? Well, a little bit of chopped up spinach fit into your meatloaf or your meatball or a soup or a stew. Putting more vegetables into a red sauce, if that's something that, you know, you're eating on a regular basis. Making a vegetable-based meal. So if meatloaf is something you eat regularly, what about taking that meatloaf but putting it into a pepper and roasting the pepper and letting the meatloaf cook in the pepper? Stuffed peppers, right? But you're increasing your vegetables. Always trying to find ways to add more vegetables into everything we're eating. So why? That's kind of the big question, right? Why am I telling you to eat all these extra vegetables? And I just need to grab this. All right. Hold on that thought for 1 second. I just want to make sure that I don't overcook my meatballs. So I typically saute them on one side for about a minute or two. And then the tricky part is flipping them without making a total mess. But if I can do that with a puppy and a toddler running back and forth, they're not right now, of course, but then I have faith that you can too. All right. What I like to do is take my spatula and go through and loosen them up, and then use my tongs to flip them. Okay. Everybody's loosened, and then we're just gonna flip them all over. 1, 2. Ooh, that middle one. There we go. Watch your heat too. If it gets too hot, then they'll start to burn. Okay. Whoops, that one I didn't flip. Some of these I did a slightly better job on than others. But as Julia Child always said, no apologies. But see, there we've got some nice caramelizing brown. And I'm gonna just pop this right in the oven. Those will cook for about 10 minutes at 350. Maybe a little bit less. Check them after maybe 8 minutes. What you're looking for is an internal temperature of 165 degrees. If you don't have a meat thermometer, you can cut into it, and if it's cooked all the way through, you're good to go. I'll answer a few, or I'll finish my last thought about why vegetables are important. We'll take a look at our sauce. I don't know if the meatballs will be done, but we'll talk about how to compose your meal, and we'll go from there, okay? So really, I've been talking about how important it is to eat more vegetables, that we want to be sneaking them into all of our meals as often as possible. But why? Why should you care about that? Again, if you've tuned into any of my previous classes for Learning Kitchen Live, it's one of my main things that I talk about all the time. But we know from lots of research that the vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, and fiber that are in fruits and vegetables will help to reduce things like blood pressure, help to control blood sugar levels. They help to make you feel fuller for longer, which helps with weight reduction. Certain phytochemicals in different fruits and vegetables can help your immune system, so to help ward off things like basic infection, from simple things like basic infections all the way up to, there's some research out there looking into how the fruits and vegetables that we eat affect whether or not we develop certain cancers. Fruits and vegetables are nature's wonder drug, and so try to incorporate as many as you can into the foods that you eat every day. If you have any other questions, as I said, please post them into the comments section, and I'm happy to answer anything that comes my way. Let's take a look at the sauce, and then as I've held your attention hopefully for about almost 45 minutes. I should probably let you all go, right? But so here is this beautiful sauce. And again, as I said, the longer it cooks, the more flavorful it will get. And I'm just gonna top this, or mix in a pound of pasta. I'm gonna, of course, recommend whole wheat pasta because again, it's gonna give you extra vitamins, minerals, and fiber. But if you like regular pasta, you've already done so many good things with this meal, regular pasta is totally fine. Don't forget to try out one of these, either one of the recipes I shared with you today, or one of Beth or Val's recipes from sometime within the month of January. Take a picture of that amazing creation that you've made and post it in the comment section underneath the video to enter for the contest to win a brand new Instant Pot. I hope that you got some good tips and tricks today, that you give these recipes a try, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care. Bye.